Shows how little you know politics.
Choose your destiny.
You can go left or you go right. You go forward, but never ever back.
I want to hear your thoughts.
Good evening, my little one. I shall make you psychotic.
Mommy, what does psychotic mean?
Technical difficulties here. Check. King Chaka ENT. Y'all can check out the music on Spotify, Apple, and other services. Something is wrong with my sound here.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
Anyways,
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Remember, an educated public cannot be controlled. Learn to be active. The views and events expressed here are totally whacked and not necessarily the views of anyone. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien? Are you doing those? I'm losing it. Can we help each other? You know, can we help each other more? I think we can. Yes, we can. Anyways, I'm a little discombobulated. I'm having technical difficulties, and I'm not sure if y'all can even hear me. Can y'all hear me? Okay, I got a little confirmation right there. All right, I feel a little bit better. Anyways, peace and love, peace and love. You know, another installment. I'm a little out of it, I ain't gonna lie. Just got off of work and didn't get much sleep last night. So, you know, I'm hoping for a good show. Let's go. So the name of the show today is, see, my sound is bothering me. I'm not sure if I'm getting good sound right now. The name of the show today is Uncool Kids, the Uncool Kids. So it's like, you know, big up to the weirdos, to the ones that aren't accepted all the time in the group. Big up to the ones who come in through the back door and come in through the side door, you know. Big up to the ones they call crazy, throw it off, you know. Big up to the ones they call tards, you know, the ones who really do have OCD and ADHD and bipolar, you know. Shout out to all the people who, you know, have disabilities like, you know, missing legs, arms, stuff like that. Shout out to y'all. You know, I ain't gonna lie because y'all are my tribe, you know. I ain't gonna lie. It's real, and I say it all the time. My daughter gets mad or whatever. She kind of feels like I'm being like offensive or whatever, but I'm not. That's not my intention. Because I fit in with y'all. Because I don't fit in with the goody goodies like Biggie Smalls would say. I don't fit in with the goody goodies. I don't fit in with the ones who are normal, you know, the ones who I don't know are the majority, if you will. I don't fit in with them. And I tried really hard for a long time to kind of like pretend or whatever to try to fit in, to I don't know, like hide who I am, you know, and go along to get along. I tried so hard. I tried so hard for so long to fit in. And then time went on, and then I kind of gave up on it. And once I gave up on it, then I realized that I was actually special. So shout out to this people, the special ones, the ones they call special. Because my mom used to say that about me when I was a little kid, but she didn't mean it in like a positive way. She was like, my kid, he's special. Leave him alone, he's special. You know, she didn't mean it in like a good way necessarily. I heard her, I know what she meant, you know, and I always felt weird and awkward. I still do, you know, and people that know me probably see me as awkward and weird. I say things that are out of turn and off time, and off color. You know, I do things that people just find strange and weird, just like not appropriate, you know. But I embrace that shit now, you know. It makes me who I am, and I really am special. I really am different, you know, and I love it. I love being who I am, you know. I embrace it now. It really does bring a smile to my face to not be like the mainstream people, you know, to not fit in with the crowd. It makes me sad sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. It makes me sad sometimes still to this day, you know, to not fit in the crowd. And I'm also afraid, because I'm always afraid that everyone's gonna turn on me. Like I'm gonna say something weird and the whole crowd, like it doesn't matter where I'm at. I could be at school, I could be in class, I could be at work, I could be in the public. And I'm always kind of afraid that I'm gonna say something or do something that's just gonna make everyone around me just turn on me, like the invasion of the body snatchers. you know and that's why I like that movie, the Matrix, so much, because I feel like I'm a glitch. you know the programming didn't work on me, and it probably didn't work on me because I am kind of slow. you know so that's my superpower. My superpower is that the program has a hard time working on me. you know and I really know this to be true. Like, it's always trying to get you every day, every day, every day. It's guiding you to be like everyone else, to fit in with the crowd. You know, everyone wants to be the cool kid, right? Everybody wants to be accepted, you know, everyone wants to be like cherished and loved or whatever, you know. But the real leaders don't fit in with the crowd. They don't. Because if they fit in with the crowd, then they're not a leader. The crowd, the crowd, they are followers. They're not leaders. The leaders stand out. They're different from everyone else, you know. And it's something that people see in them, like they make their own way, you know, instead of following. That's another thing that's really weird about me. Like everything I do, I don't do it the way it's intended. And sometimes, again, like it makes me, sometimes I get tears in my eyes when I'm just trying to open like a package of something, like something that's really really simple tasks I struggle with. things that most people just like do without even thinking. I spend a whole lot of brain power trying to do it, and I always do it backwards, like the opposite way that it was intended to be done. And I don't do that on purpose. I don't. I'm just like backwards. I flip everything. I switch things. If you watch the show a lot and listen to me talk, you'll hear when I flip things, I'll switch the beginning and the ends of sentences. Sometimes I switch the first letter with the last letter. And if I'm reciting numbers, I'll I'll flop those numbers around all the time. And I catch myself a lot of times and I'll flip it back. But sometimes I don't, because my brain sees things in like backwards, and I always have to flip it back. And that's another reason why when I'm having a conversation with people, they think I'm slow. And that's because when I hear what they say, I have to flip it back in proper order, and that takes a moment. So I pause, and that's what makes people think I'm slow, because I heard what you said, but my brain hasn't comprehended it yet. Like, my brain comprehended it, but it's like a puzzle that I have to put back together in my mind so that I can respond, if you will. But a lot of times I already know what you're going to say before you're going to say it, because a lot of, that's part of the program. Like, people say the same things, certain situations, they say the same things. It's not even hard. It's not difficult to read people's minds, because they're like blank pages. Blank pages is not a good thing, not a good analogy. They're more like they're clear, they're see-through. It doesn't really take effort to read them, because it's all over their face, it's in their body language, it's in their tone, you know, and they're predictable because they are robotic and they do the same things over and over all the time. And then most people fall in those categories. So, I'll be wrong sometimes. 8 out of 10 times though, I'm gonna be right. Because some people are not, so predictable, but most people are. So it is what it is. The people that think they're smart, the people that think they know things, those are the people that aren't smart most of the time. Those are the people that don't know things most of the time. And you can test them and realize that that's what the reality of it is. Like me being different and special and weird and thrown off, and accepting that is, like I said, that's my super. But that also is what makes me smart, because I know that I'm not aware of a lot of things. I know that I do things wrong. I know that I say things wrong. I know that I do things backwards. I know that sometimes I don't comprehend like what someone is saying or what I'm reading or what I'm hearing, like whatever. I know that I don't get it sometimes. And then I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, hmm, what am I not getting? What am I not understanding? What am I missing? What am I doing wrong is really what I'm thinking. And that makes me pause, and I think about it for a moment, and another moment, another moment. I overthink everything. And that's really kind of a problem. But that's what leads to me being able to understand things way better than most people, I would say. I mean, hey, believe me or don't believe me, I don't care. You can listen to the show and realize, what real understanding is and what real intelligence is. I'm telling you. And people that know me, everyone that knows me sees me as someone who like knows things. I'm thrown off and weird, but I still know things. Like, you ask me questions and I can answer them, clearly and concisely, and explain them in a way that, like Einstein said, that if you can't explain things simply, then you don't understand them good enough. I'm probably messing up the quote, but pretty much that's what it boils down to. And I understand what he means by that. It's like when you thoroughly understand something, even if it's a really complex thing, you can explain it in lamest terms. You can explain it simply. The person that doesn't understand it very well, they're going to use charts and graphs, and it's going to take them an hour to explain it, and you're just going to be more confused at the end of it. You're not going to understand it any better after they're done because they don't really understand it. So they didn't help you with your understanding. Does that make any sense? Anyway, shout out to all the uncool kids, all the weirdos, all the strange people, all of the freaking aliens. You know what I'm saying? All of the handicaps, you know, everyone who has some kind of disability. Shout out to y'all. I love y'all. Y'all my tribe, and it is what it is. We're going to rock this thing. We the ones that's going to change the world. We the ones that make a difference. We the ones that make the world like great. You know what I mean? It's the complexity of things that makes it great. You know, God's creation. And they say God don't make no mistakes. So God made you perfect. They're like, no matter how you are, you're perfect because you're a part of the whole thing. You know what I mean? And the different shapes, colors, sizes, you know, that's what makes it great. That's what makes it like, um, you know, how plain everything would be if it was all the same. If everyone was the same height, if everyone was the same skin tone, if everybody spoke the same language, you know, if everybody had the same voice tone, you know how lame would the world be? And you look around and you look at the earth and you look at the animals and you look at the insects and the birds, the trees, the different grasses and grains, you know, come on, the topographies, the geysers, the mountains, the shafts, the holes, you know, literally everything. It's all different, and that's what makes it beautiful. Do y'all hear me? Anyways, inspiration. Shout out to y'all. Peace and love to the weirdos. That's what we're talking about with the Uncool Kids. But anyway, so let's get on with the show. I already had things prepared for the show. I always prepare for the show ahead of time because I never have time to do it like the day of. I never have time to prepare for the show the day of. I do the show on Fridays and Saturdays, and I almost always work on those days. And so, you know, like I say, a couple of days before, earlier in the week is when I get the show together, the stuff that I figure I want to cover. Like a lot of times I don't know what all I'm going to cover. And I just kind of have groups of things that I, you know, and then the last minute I kind of choose which ones I'm going to actually cover and which ones I'm not, or whatever. So, but that's how I do it. But we had developing thing happen overnight or recently, like within the last like 48 hours or whatever, after I got the show together. And luckily today I was kind of slow at work and someone brought it to my attention. They were like, hey, this thing happened. And I was like, wow, I hadn't heard about that. And it really kind of hit me because I like to be aware of things, and I like to be on it when it comes to like, especially major events, you know. I try to keep my ears to the street. That's why I'm able to do this for y'all. And that's the reason why I feel like I'm really giving y'all a gift, because I have a talent for being able to research things. And I'm always on, you know, I'm always in it. Like I always have my ear to the street and I'm looking at all of these different news stories and like just a bunch of stuff. And like, I think I'm made for this, to do this, what I'm doing, because I would be doing this even if I wasn't doing the show. If that makes any sense. I do this because this is just what I do, like for myself. And so being here, doing the show and being able to share with y'all, it gives me a certain amount of satisfaction, but I will be doing it regardless. I still will be doing it. And I get satisfaction from it without doing the show, if that makes any sense. So, but anyways, it was a little bit slow. It was a bit slow at work. So I was able to do a bit of research, you know, with my phone a little bit, and on this topic that happened. So we're going to start off with that. And if you haven't been, if you're underneath a rock, maybe you haven't heard about this, but let's go into this. Am I sharing? Okay. Let's start here with this one. We're going to work our way around this story. Here, Hassan Mafi posted this. I retweeted it. The journalist asked Putin, he said, "Are you able to forgive?" Putin says, "Yes, but not everything." Journalist said, "What is impossible to forgive?" Putin says, "Betrayal." 17 hours ago.
А вы умеете прощать?
Да. Но не все.
А что невозможно простить?
Предательство.
А вы умеете прощать?
Да. Но не все.
А что невозможно простить?
Предательство.
А вы умеете прощать?
So there was a betrayal that happened here. We're gonna get into it. Let me see. Uh-oh. What is this? Oh, this is my show. Why is it popping up on here? That's really weird. Let me see. Are there any retweets underneath this? Somebody says, "Where's the full interview?" Question is, who betrayed who? He is right. Never forgive. I agree with him. Okay, let's go out of here and move forward. Can I play this? So this clip right here, it shows Russian Air Force targeting a convoy of Wagner equipment on the M4 highway in Voronezh region this morning. I don't know if I can really play that, so I'm not gonna. This one, it says thread, list of Wagner military atrocities and war crimes in Africa, the Middle East, and Ukraine. So, like I said, we're going around in a circle on this, but it's gonna all make sense as I go on. It says the Mora massacre, Mali Wagner murdered up to 500 civilians and buried them in mass graves, March 27, 2022, March 31st, 2022. It says the Mora massacre. One resident told Human Rights Watch they counted 241 men buried in common graves. They executed hundreds of men before dumping them into death pits. Number 2, it says the Agbado massacre, Central African Republic. At least 65 civilians murdered, including women and children. Wagner shot into crowds indiscriminately and burned down at least a dozen houses, January 16th to 17th, 2022. Number 3, it says the Bongbodo massacre, Central African Republic, July 21st, 2021. Wagner fighters summarily executed at least 13 unarmed male civilians, shooting them in the head before dumping them in the road. Number 4, Wagner war crimes in Syria. Ever seen the Wagner sledgehammer symbol? Wagner used a sledgehammer to torture a Syrian army deserter to death in 2017. They crushed his extremities before beheading his lifeless body, cutting off his arms and lighting it on fire. What is this? It says the Syrian army deserter's name was Hamadi Bauta. Wagner fighters posed with his body after beheading him and lighting him on fire. They sent the video around on WhatsApp, and the video was eventually sent to Hamadi's family. Number 5, Wagner war crimes in Ukraine. It says Wagner would follow up the execution of Hamadi's Bota by sledgehammer with the execution of convicted Russian murderer and Wagner fighter Yevgeny Nuzhin. Again, they filmed it and shared it everywhere. I saw some of these videos, and you could probably do an easy Google search and find this stuff. Horrible. I'm not sharing it, though. Let me read this one. It says, perhaps the most egregious and beastly Wagner war crime in Ukraine, ex-Wagner fighters testified to executing entire basements filled with Ukrainian women and children on the order of Yevgeny Prigozhin. I've been trying to say this dude's name all day, so this is the name. One fighter recounted shooting a screaming 5-year-old girl in the head. Let me see. How much of this is this in English?
Она визжит, она маленький ребенок, понимаешь, ей 6 там год.
I don't think we need those Grizzly details anyways. So the Wagner Group, I think I have a tweet before this or after this that explains them more. So latest, Wagner attempts coup in Russia. It says everything started when Yevgeny Prigozhin, I can't pronounce his name, y'all, forgive me, the head of the Russian mercenary group Wagner, accused Russia of bombing his military sites in Ukraine. Despite the Russian Defense Ministry claims that there is no truth to his allegation, Prigozhin stated that 25,000 mercenaries were participating in a military coup organized by him. Igor Grikin, a former member of the Russian Federal Security Service, confirmed that the military coup attempt had begun. And now we knew he was lying. Wagner has confirmed that they have indeed initiated their coup. So here's everything we know so far. It says reports the Federal Security Service, FSB, has allowed Wagner to enter Russian city of Rostov without any resistance. This just came in and could mean the FSB is part of the coup, or they are trying to save face with Wagner after Wagner was able to enter without resistance. Prigozhin just claimed the Russian chief of the general staff, Gerasimov, gave the command to open fire from aircraft on Wagner columns mixed with civilian vehicles. The pilots refused to follow the order. Roadblocks have been established by the FSB and SOBR on the Moscow, Voronezh, Rostov on Don Highway. Wagner has accused any Russian military personnel who don't assist them in their cleansing campaign of collaborating with the Ukrainians and stated that they will be dealt with accordingly. Multiple Russian military generals have made videos urging Wagner not to proceed with this attack. The OMON and SOBR units of the Russian Guard are on high alert, and security in Moscow has been significantly intensified. Allegedly, a clash has occurred between Wagner and units of the Rosgvardia on the Rostov-Moscow highway near Kozachi, Lahira. Forgive me for saying all of this wrong. It is estimated that only 25% of Russians currently have access to the internet. Armed vehicles have filled the streets of Rostov, and dozens of aircraft filled with Russian police forces are flying to the region. According to Russian Defense Ministry, Ukraine has taken advantage of Prigozhin's provocation to destabilize the situation and is attacking Russian forces along the flanks. Russia's Ministry of Defense has repeatedly asked Wagner to stand down. Russian media has reported that there is a panic in the Kremlin. No one can reach Putin, and that the current mood among St. Petersburg elites is when choosing between Putin and Prigozhin. Prigozhin is now the preferred choice. They support him. Prigozhin says he and his men are ready to go all the way, and that he and his men will destroy anyone who stands in their way. Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov, Putin received reports 24/7 about the measures taken related to the attempt of an armed rebellion. This situation is insane and is bound to have major repercussions. All right, it says, could this coup succeed? Without support from the Kremlin, this will not succeed. We have received reports of various members of the Russian military that are turning against the Kremlin or standing by and watching the developments. We have also heard that Wagner was able to enter the Russian city of Rostov with no resistance. Rostov's main city is a home to the headquarters of the Russian Southern Military District and the general headquarters for Russian military operations in Ukraine. I do not think this will succeed, and I think that Prigozhin's desperate response after learning of his potential arrest, Prigozhin has been likely planning this for a long time. smuggling Russian weapons to his forces, and building alliances from within the Kremlin. There is an ongoing investigation by the Ministry of Defense into these allegations, and we're heard reports that an assassination attempt against Prigozhin took place, likely leading to this response. What happens next? We are discussing this in the space, and it's too early to speculate. But an instability is not good news. Anything is possible now. It says updates being shared on current space and being added live in thread below. Yeah, so this is like craziness that happened. This all like. Anyways, can't really see much going on there. Trucks going by. No real context. This one, it says, this video allegedly shows heavy military combat in Rasvet Aksai district, Rostov region, near the M4 highway. The video claims this video shows clashes between the Russian forces and Wagner. If true, this confirms that Wagner entered Rostov. Prigozhin did also. Just claim Wagner shot down a Russian helicopter shooting at his force. We cannot verify the video or Prigozhin's claims. Are they going to show? I can't share if they're going to actually show it getting shot down. I don't think this video really shows anything. This one, it says, unverified video of Russian helicopter supposedly firing at Wagner troops in Rostov, Russia. If true, this is in line with Prigozhin's claims that a Russian helicopter fired at his forces and was eventually shot down. Prigozhin claims he entered Rostov with no resistance as part of his campaign to cleanse the Russian military in what Putin's press secretary calls an armed rebellion. Yeah, I don't want to share this if it's showing people actually getting shot or whatever. Like, I can't. I'll get YouTube will come for my really quickly. I don't like to share gory images anyways. Let me see. I'm trying to give y'all an idea of all of this. So let's see. Look at this one. It says, people continue to ask me to take on the situation in Russia. My take is that until we actually see any proof of kinetic hostilities, there is no situation in Russia. We've seen wild speculation and unverified reports, but on the ground, it looks like a photo op. So there's a guy in this video who's cleaning the streets like he would do normally, but then there's a tank on the damn street. This was earlier in the day. Let's read this one. It says, but if you want to know what I think is happening, I think Prigozhin is doing what he always does, which is say crazy stuff to create the illusion of disarray to cover for Russian tactical movement assaults. Just like he did in Bakhmut, he claimed Russia wasn't giving him ammo. He was going to pull all his troops out, wanted Saul's head on a platter, etc., only to turn around and finish taking Bakhmut shortly after. I think Prigozhin and Putin are conducting a psyop to disguise Russian troop movements to either launch an offensive or coerce Ukraine into attacking. The only place this is a civil war is on the internet because the folks are eager to see and believe anything to deflect from the catastrophic losses in their holy counteroffensive. Just like Belgorod, in a couple of days, the NAFO trolls will be on the next thing because this turns out to be nothing. But as always, we shall wait and see. So this is kind of how it was happening. This is how, the information was coming out and how like the chaos related to this thing happening. And the whole internet was buzzing on the idea of a civil war happening in Russia, because you got the war in Ukraine going on. So it's like the international forces, the whole point of the war in Ukraine is to weaken Russia. So seeing them going into a civil war just makes Ukraine happy. It makes NATO happy. It makes the United States happy. It makes a lot of countries in Europe, Western Europe happy. Mainly because they want to cozy up to the United States, So this one, it says, here's Putin's full speech on the events that have unfolded with Yevgeny Prigozhin. The attempted insurrection by the chief of the Wagner private military company, Yevgeny Prigozhin, amounts to a betrayal of Russia and its people. We are fighting for the lives and safety of our people, for our sovereignty and independence, for the right to be and remain Russia. So is this in English? This is long too. I don't think.
Обращаюсь к гражданам России, к личному.
So, okay, let's do it. It says, I appeal to the citizens of Russia, to the personnel of the armed forces, law enforcement agencies, and special forces, to the fighters and commanders who are now fighting on their battle positions. This is Putin's word.
Состава вооруженных сил, правоохранительных органов и специальных служб. К бойцам и командирам, которые сейчас сражаются на своих боевых позициях, отбивают атаки противника. Делают это героически.
It says, repelling the enemy's attacks and doing so heroically. I know I spoke again tonight with the commanders of all directions.
Знаю, сегодня еще раз ночью говорил с командующими всех направлений. Обращаюсь.
I am also addressing those who have been lured into this criminal enterprise and pushed onto the path of the gravest crime, armed mutiny, through deceit or threats.
И к тем, кого обманом или угрозами втянули в преступную авантюру, толкнули на путь тяжкого преступления, вооруженного мятежа.
Russia is today fighting a difficult battle for its future. It reflects the aggression of neo-Nazis and their masters. Let me double check and make sure that y'all can hear me. Give me a second, y'all. Okay, I just got confirmation. All right, cool. It sucks when I don't have anybody here because they can't give me real-time answers and I'm not sure about my mic setup. I'm going to change this very soon.
Сегодня ведет тяжелейшую борьбу за свое будущее. Отражает агрессию неонацистов и их хозяев. Против нас направлена фактически вся военная.
Virtually the entire military, economic, and information machine of the West is directed against us.
Экономическая, информационная машина Запада. Мы боремся за жизнь и безопасность наших людей, за наш суверенитет.
We are fighting for the lives and security of our people, for our sovereignty and independence, for the right to be and remain Russia, a state with a 1,000-year history.
И независимость. За право быть и оставаться Россией, государством с тысячелетней историей. Это битва, когда решается
This battle, when the fate of our people is at stake, requires unity of all forces, unity, consolidation, and responsibility, when everything that weakens us should be thrown aside.
судьба нашего народа, требует единения всех сил, единства, консолидации и ответственности, когда в сторону должно быть отброшено все, что ослабляет нас. Любые расовые
Any reproaches that our external enemies can use to tear us from the inside,
которыми могут воспользоваться и пользуются наши внешние враги, чтобы подорвать нас изнутри. И потому действия,
therefore, the actions that break our unity are, in fact, a retreat from their people, from their comrades in arms, who are now fighting on the front.
которые раскалывают наше единство, это, по сути, отступничество от своего народа, от боевых товарищей, которые сражаются сейчас на фронте. Это удар в спину.
This is a blow to the back of our country and our people.
Нашей стране и нашему народу. И именно такой
It was such a blow to Russia in 1917 when the country was waging the First World War, but its victory was stolen.
удар был нанесен по России в 1917 году, когда страна вела Первую мировую войну. Но победу у нее украли.
Intrigues, squabbles, politicking behind the back of the army, and the people turned into the greatest shock, the destruction of the army and the collapse of the state, the loss of vast territories.
Интриги, склоки, политиканство за спиной армии и народа обернулись величайшим потрясением, разрушением армии и распадом государства, утратой громадных территорий. В итоге,
as a result of the tragedy of the Civil War, the Russians killed the Russian brothers and sisters and various political adventurers and foreign forces that divided the country, tore it apart, took advantage of it.
Трагедии гражданской войны. Русские убивали русских, братья братьев. А корыстную выгоду извлекали разного рода политические авантюристы, да зарубежные силы, которые делили страну, рвали ее на части. Мы не дадим этому
We will not let this happen again.
повториться. Защитим и наш народ, и нашу государственность.
We will protect our people and our state from any threats, including from internal treason.
От любых угроз. В том числе от внутреннего предательства. А то, с чем мы
And what we have come across is precisely treason.
столкнулись, это именно предательство. Непомерные амбиции и личные
Excessive ambitions and personal interests have led to treason in our country and in our people.
и интересы привели к измене. К измене и своей стране, и своему народу, и тому делу.
And to the cause of which soldiers and commanders of the Wagner Group, heroes who liberated Solidar and Artemovsk, the cities and villages of Donbass, fought and gave their lives for Novorossiya, for the unity of Russia world, the Russian world.
За которые бок о бок с другими нашими частями и подразделениями сражались и погибали бойцы и командиры группы «Вагнер». Герои, которые освобождали Солидар и Артемовск, города и поселки Донбасса, сражались и отдавали свои жизни за Новороссию, за единство русского мира.
Their name and glory were also betrayed by those who are trying to organize a revolt, pushing the country to anarchy and fratricide, to defeat and eventually to surrender.
Имя и славу тоже предали те, кто пытается организовать мятеж, толкает страну к анархии и братоубийству, к поражению в конечном итоге и к капитуляции.
I repeat, any internal turmoil is a deadly threat to our statehood, to us as a nation.
Повторю, любая внутренняя смута – смертельная угроза для нашей государственности, для нас, как нации. Это удар.
This is a blow to Russia, to our people, and our actions to protect the fatherland from such a threat will be tough.
По России, по нашему народу. И наши действия по защите Отечества от такой угрозы будут жесткие.
Anyone who deliberately took the path of treason who prepared an armed rebellion took the path of blackmail and terrorist methods will be punished.
Кто сознательно встал на путь предательства, кто готовил вооруженный мятеж, встал на путь шантажа и террористических методов, понесут неименуемое наказание. Ответят
The armed forces and other state bodies will respond to the law and to our people.
и перед законом, и перед нашим народом. Вооруженные силы и другие государственные органы
They have
получили
received the necessary orders.
необходимые приказы.
Additional measures of anti-terrorist nature are now being introduced in Moscow, the Moscow region, and a number of other regions.
Дополнительные меры антитеррористического характера вводятся сейчас в Москве, Московской области, ряде других регионов.
Decisive actions will also be taken to stabilize the situation in Rostov-on-Don.
Будут также предприняты решительные действия по стабилизации ситуации в Ростове-на-Дону. Она остается сложной.
It remains difficult.
Фактически заблокирована
In fact, the work of civil and military authorities is blocked.
работа органов гражданского и военного управления.
As the president of Russia and the supreme commander-in-chief, as a citizen of Russia, I will do everything to defend the country.
Как президент России и верховный главнокомандующий, как гражданин России, сделаю все, чтобы отстоять страну, защитить
To protect the constitutional order, life and security, and the freedom of the citizens.
конституционный строй, жизни и безопасности, свободу граждан. Тот, кто
Those who organized and prepared the armed rebellion, who raised arms against our comrades in arms, betrayed Russia, will be held accountable for it.
организовал и готовил военный мятеж, кто поднял оружие на боевых товарищей, предали Россию и ответят за это. А те,
As for those who are being dragged into this crime, I urge them not to make a fatal and tragic, unrepeatable mistake.
тех, кого пытаются втянуть в это преступление, призываю не совершать роковую и трагическую, неповторимую ошибку. Сделать
To make the only right choice, to stop taking part in criminal activities.
единственно правильный выбор. Прекратить участие в преступных действиях. Верю,
I believe that we will safeguard and defend what is dear and sacred to us.
что мы сбережем и отстоим то, что дорого и свято для нас. И вместе
Together with our motherland, we will overcome any challenges and become even stronger.
с нашей Родиной мы одолеем любые испытания, станем еще сильнее.
Heavy words, man. I ain't gonna lie. I feel for whoever freaking was involved in this stuff, because you know they're gonna do a thorough ass investigation. And bruh, you know, he said it twice in this speech. He said, you know, whoever was involved in this, you know, they're gonna face some consequences. Like, he said it so nonchalant and matter-of-factly that you know is true. Like, and you know, just from what you know about Putin and Russia, you know that those people are gonna, you know, it's not gonna be good for them. Let's read some tweet replies underneath this. It says, "Where this air only on RT Slavengard? So confused." I don't know what they're saying. This one, it says, "Exactly, aired only on RT. Seemed to me this speech was for outsiders, but I'm not sure what was behind the decision." Okay, so that was the answer to that first person's tweet, you know. And so if you don't know what RT is, Russia TV. So it's and you know, recently Redacted Tonight, all of this, there was we covered it a bit in the show, but they closed RT America, and so they was all like, it's Russia propaganda or whatever. But a lot of these were American journalists who did these shows, and they weren't able to do what they wanted to do with any of the media channels within the United States, you know. So like, to scrutinize the United States and tell like real information to the American people is really tough within the media here in the States. So RT was a place that a lot of these people could find a home to be able to do the journalism that they wanted to do. So, but they closed RT America and got rid of all of those people. So the thing is, so this is coming, what they're saying is this is coming out of RT, and RT is not really like, it's an international, it's for the rest of the people, basically, you know, the rest of the world. Like, what they're saying within Russia or whatever, like the RT is not, RT is talking to everybody else. It's not talking to the Russian people. Basically, that's what they're saying here. And I'm on RT all the time. Not just RT, it's other ones. It's Al Jazeera. It's the India one. I can't think of the name of it right now. I watch all of that stuff, and that's how I get the international news, and that's how I'm able to cover stuff that, you know, the regular news media here in the States don't cover or can't cover, or, you know, don't even have access to, or whatever. It's because they put the little label on it and they be like, oh, this is from Russia, so it's like unapproved or whatever the hell, or this is from India, or this is from Saudi Arabia or whatever. And it's like, so they slap that label on it, and the label is what scares people away. And they're like, a lot of people who don't know anything, they're just going to say, oh, it's Russia propaganda, oh, it's Saudi Arabia propaganda, or it's India propaganda, or whatever. So like, you know, I have to say that sometimes it is, that's true, but sometimes it isn't. Okay, that's just true too. So like, you can get really good information by, and especially when you compare those news stories. And that's what I say all the time on the show. I try to get people to, you know, compare the like, if you really want to understand a story, look at how the different media outlets cover a story, you know, the same story. So you look at one story, and then you look at multiple different sources talking about that particular story. And then you see where they line up the parts of the story that is the same in those different reports from those different sources. And then you know that that's going to be more closer to reality, more closer to truth, some actual factual information that you can actually use, that you can kind of stand on. Because why would the different sources lie about, you know, how it lines up? What I mean is, they're not intending to line up with each other. You know what I mean? So whenever they do, then you know, there you go. Now you found some truth that you can be pretty sure is actual truth. Because, you know, within the United States, you know, we have parroted news stories where they say like the exact same lines. So when I say different news sources, I'm not saying like simply CNN, Fox, and MSNBC, which is a one way you can do it, but that's a really low level. I'm talking about from different countries, like totally different news sources, you know. Let me read another comment. It says, this reeks of interference of another kind. Another comment says, thank you. I thought I entered an alternate reality where nothing made sense when reading people's posts today. This explains a lot. Another comment says, people should remember that the goal of NATO is the breakup of Russia. The mercenaries are open to fight on behalf of the highest bidder. The Russian Air Force will be crucial in how this ends and who emerges as the victor. Now, when I first heard of this story and when I was looking at it, that's the direction I was going in. It's like, so the Wagner group are mercenaries. So they're like guns for hire, you know, like they don't really have allegiances to anybody. So it's like whoever pays them to do a job, and they're going to do that job. So then that would make sense. Like if you think about it, if you had NATO forces or you had any kind of interests that were going against Russia, getting some money to this Wagner group and getting them to like fight against Russia within Russia, like some internal coup type of deal, that would really be a smart way to go at it, you know, and that would make a lot of sense. You know, you want to tear Russia apart, you want them to be weakened, you want them to have troubles, you want to win the Ukraine war. This will be a pretty damn clever way to do it. And I saw some reports where the Wagner Group, when they was, because they did a march to Moscow, they didn't make it all the way to Moscow. They turned around. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we're gonna get to that. But they picked up a bunch of money, a huge sum of money that was left for them, on their way with their march. So, and when I saw that and I read that, and that's what I was thinking, I was like, So I wouldn't be surprised if it was the United States, NATO, or maybe some European country, uh, Western European country, or even some private persons who was able to build some funds and drop them off in Russia and try to get them to this group so that they could pay them to do this thing, to cause this coup or whatever, that would make a lot of sense, especially given that the Ukraine offensive is failing. The those tanks are getting picked off like crazy. They were talking about in the news like a couple of weeks ago. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna send a bunch of these tanks over there, and Ukraine is gonna do this offensive, and they're gonna try to win the war against Russia or whatever." Well, that is not working out. The tanks did show up, and they had this latest type of equipment, all new stuff, like pretty badass tanks. But Russia's defenses had ways around that stuff, and they dealt with it easily, like picked them apart. So the thing was that the tanks needed air support, and they didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? So that would be international war crimes or whatever. And Putin said, if y'all put some fighter jets up there, if NATO put some fighter jets up there, we're going to take that as a direct provocation against Russia, and we're going to take the war to you. It's not going to just be us fighting against Ukraine. Now we're going to fight against you if you put some fighter jets up there. So they didn't do that. And so with the tanks doing what they were doing without air support, they got picked apart. So the Ukraine offensive is failing and falling apart. And this would be the perfect time for something like this to happen. We was talking about it in the show last night a little bit, because we show at the end of the show, Putin showed this big, huge intercontinental ballistic missile that he's put ready to be used. And really, I think what we were saying in the show was like, it's just a message to everybody. It was a picture, and it's a message to everybody. Boom, we got this big old intercontinental ballistic missile that can put 40-ton warheads on it and freaking aim it and have it hit like damn near anywhere in the world, like really long distance. So, and it's hypersonic, so it's really fast. So it's faster than, you're gonna have a hard time shooting it down, basically. So it has a good probability of making it to its target, and that's really scary stuff. So, like I say, this would be a perfect time with the Ukraine offensive kind of falling apart. This would be a perfect time for some kind of false flag event that would pull like the U.S. into a full-scale offensive against Russia. So, but then this thing happened. So, and it's like, it's really interesting related to the timing of this. Like, so instead of it being like a false flag event, it turns into this internal coup thing, which would be the way to go, because you don't really want that false flag event to lead to a nuclear annihilation. You know what I mean? Mutually assured destruction. You know what I'm saying? So if it was an internal thing, and then Russia would have to fight against its own forces, basically its own mercenaries, then that would be the way to go, logically. Can y'all hear me? I'm not confident. Let me do a check. Let me do it. One second, y'all. One second. One second. Okay. All right. I got confirmation. Cool. All right, let's go back to some of the tweet replies. Let's see, what do we have here? This translator says, "We are fighting for the lives and safety of our people." Let's I'm gonna come back to this. I have some stuff on Instagram that these were a lot of developments that happened. Let me go to this. So let's see. Boom. Not this. Let's see this one. History Photograph posted this. They said rebel Russian mercenaries were advancing toward Moscow and would destroy everything that stands in our way. It's got clips. I hope it doesn't show anything bad. There's no sound. It just shows guys marching and showed a tank. This is in the streets of, where is it at? I guess this is clips from the Rostov area. How come we don't have no sound on this? You know, and I think that helicopter did get shot down. I saw some pictures. So apparently, when they were on their way, you know, heading towards Moscow, they a Russian military helicopter shot at, you know, the forces that were moving, you know, and I think they shot that helicopter down. So that is a development that I think happened. Let's read this. It says, Russian President Vladimir Putin vowed to crush what he called an armed mutiny after the private army of mercenary boss Yevgeny Prigozhin seized control of a southern city as part of an attempt to oust the military leadership. In Russia's first armed insurrection since the Chechen Wars 20 years ago, heavily armed fighters from Prigozhin's Wagner militia were in control of the streets of Rostov-on-Don, a city of more than 1 million people close to the border with Ukraine. Let's read some comments on this one. It says, breaking, the first Wagner units have reached the Moscow region. Another comment says, the art of war is to destroy the enemy from within. Won't be surprised if CIA offered large sums of money to Prigozhin. See, that's exactly what I said. Another comment says, Russia's population of 143 million is being conquered by 25,000. See, people are quick to jump because they want to hear, you know, Russia failing or whatever. So they're quick to jump on this. And that's where the news sources really kind of went on this. But as you're going to see, as we continue to cover this, what actually happens or happened. Let's read this. It says, Wagner recruited psychos and freaks out of prisons. They kill their own soldiers on camera by smashing their heads in with sledgehammers. Putin needs to go, but having Wagner take over and be in charge of nuclear arms, absolutely no thanks. The better outcome would Wagner destroying themselves while destroying Putin's regime. Yeah, so that's crazy. So what if these mercenaries were somehow successful? I really just don't see how it could have happened. But let's say it did happen, and then these people were in charge of Russia, like make it into the Kremlin, and then have access to those weapons. Woo, crazy, crazy, crazy. So then you got mercenaries, people that only really just care about money. So whoever's the highest bidder, man, that's a Mad Max scenario times 10 right there. And that wouldn't be good for anybody. No one will want that. No matter which side you're on, you don't want that. Trust me, you don't. If you understand that, you don't want that. Let me read another one. It says, Russia tears itself apart while Ukraine and her allies sit back and smile. So there was a lot of memes going around that was showing like, it was like, what's his name? Why I can't think of his name. The guy, the Ukrainian guy, Zelensky, with like popcorn or whatever. It was like not enough popcorn jokes or whatever. So like they're sitting back watching it and really enjoying the show. Like it's perfect. anyways, that stuff was kind of funny, I ain't gonna lie. But then too, earlier we read how like this whole thing could just be like a little psyop that even could be behind Putin somehow behind it in a certain way. I don't think so, but that's what someone was saying. Like it could be like, you know, a distraction. And then Zelensky and Ukraine sitting back eating popcorn. Meanwhile, Russia is moving troops or maneuvering or whatever they're doing, like rearming themselves or whatever they're doing, like moving weapons or whatever, getting into position to freaking end this thing. A lot of smart people are saying that the Ukraine war will be over by the end of the summer. We will see. And read another comment. It says, fellow Americans, for the record, this is what an insurrection looks like. Another comment says that 6.2 billion USD accounting error from Pentagon, pretty clear where it went now. Ooh, dun dun dun. Because if you didn't know, recently they had this thing with the weapons, how much they cost, and missing money. We talked pretty thoroughly last night about what's his name? Bernie is introducing a bill to say that, you know, if the you know, basically the military industrial complex, if they can't pass an audit, then they have to give some money back, and you know, all of these stipulations related to that. Because recently, you know, it was like it came out that they were buying weapons, or some of the weapons that were sold, it was overpriced, and there's like huge amount of money that just went missing out of the aid that was supposed to go to Ukraine. So then this person is saying, that's where that money went to. That went to pay off these mercenaries to do a coup in Russia. Interesting. Let's read another comment. It says, and that's what I say, man. People are smart. You know, that's why I read the comments. You know, they like to make you feel like you're dumb. They like to make regular people feel like they're dumb. They don't understand things. They really don't get it. And that's why I read comments all the time, because that's totally not true. People aren't dumb. They're smart. Let me read this one. It says, I'm in Moscow right now. I don't support Putin. It's hell. I live in the South, so I'm very close to these murderers. I'm terrified because I'm home alone. I'm not an adult. I'm 16. Whole city is full of policemen and Rosgordia, Russian National Guardia. Roads to the city are closed. I hope it will all end and I'll be able to live in the free democratic country. Another comment, it says, this was bound to happen. Russia made the same mistake Rome made by investing too much power in mercenaries. Then they tried to seize the power back. What did you think the mercenaries were going to do? Hand back the reins? Another comment says, so this is why the news only covered a submarine story for days. Well, this is happening, like this happened over the last, I don't know, 24 to 48 hours. Like this is very, very recent. This is like happening now. Like this is very, very recent. So the submarine thing was like over a whole week, and then it's over anyway. They sure that the guys are dead, and they found like the pieces of the ship, and they know it was an implosion and all that. And that came out at least a day ago. So the timeline doesn't match up for that to be what it is. Another comment says, let them take each other out. Another one says, Daddy Putin needs to chill. Another comment says, amazing news. Russians reap what they sowed. Let's go back. So hold on. I know I got more on this. This one, RT posted it. It says, tanks and armed men on streets of Rostov-on-Don amid Wagner coup attempt. And music is going to get me. It says tanks, armored personnel carriers, and other military hardware have been filmed on the move in the southern Russian city of Rostov-on-Don, according to multiple videos posted on social media. Several videos show tanks parked in crossroads while being flanked by infantrymen. A military truck and armored combat vehicles are seen in the distance. The video was reportedly filmed near the HQ of Russia's Southern Military District. Later on, footage surfaced showing PMC Wagner chief Evgeny Prigozhin touring the HQ of Russia's Southern Military District and talking to generals Yunus Bek, Yevgrov, and Vladimir Alexeyev. The extraordinary footage comes after Moscow accused Prigozhin of attempting to stage an armed insurrection. The charges were brought late Friday after Prigozhin accused Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and General Valery Gerasimov, the chair of the Russian General Staff, of serious crimes. Prigozhin claimed to have ordered troops loyal to him to move towards Rostov-on-Don, a major city in southern Russia. Russia's National Anti-Terrorist Committee has announced a counter-terrorist operation regime in Moscow and Moscow region to prevent potential terrorist attacks. It says 2,500 men are not going to take on the Russian army. The men are mostly loyal to Mother Russia, not Prigozhin. They are in Rostov-on-Don to prevent any artillery attacks on their numbers while a new contract is worked out. Wagner want to remain autonomous. The generals want them on regular military contracts. The big money comes from autonomy. The move also gives Putin the threat he needs to enable a massive mobilization of new troops. Seems like a win-win for Putin. I told you, man, people are smart. This person sounds like he's aware of what the hell's going on. That was a great comment. What was this? This is a piece of the clip that I played earlier. Let's see.
Agencies and special services, fighters and commanders now in their battle positions, fighting against enemy attacks, doing this heroically. This night, I talked to commanders in all.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the same speech that I read earlier. The attempted insurrection by the chief of the Wagner private military company amount to betrayal of Russia and its people. Yeah, so that's the same one I did earlier, basically. Okay, this one, it says, Wagner chief says mercenaries are turning back after advance to Moscow. Okay, so this is a later development right here. Washington Post, it was update 5:48 p.m. Eastern Time. Criminal charges against Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin will be dropped, and he will go to Belarus, the Kremlin said. Okay, so this is the culmination of what has happened. This is what I was getting to. Excuse me. Last night my throat got really dry. I don't want this to happen again today. So let's read this. It says, mercenaries halted their travel toward Moscow. Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin said in an audio message Saturday, a statement that appeared to end the immediate crisis after a day of troop advancement. Criminal charges against Prigozhin will be dropped, and the Wagner boss will go to Belarus, said Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. The guarantee that Prigozhin will be able to go to Belarus is based on Russian President Vladimir Putin's word, according to Peskov. The agreement for Prigozhin's forces to turn around was brokered by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, who spoke with Putin before negotiating with Prigozhin. According to Belarusian state-owned news agency Belta and Peskov, with security guarantees for Wagner on the table, Prigozhin reportedly agreed to stop his dash to Moscow. Late Friday, Prigozhin called for Russians to join Wagner's campaign after claiming that a Wagner camp in the Ukraine had been attacked from the rear by Russia's military. He also said he would march on Moscow unless he could confront his enemies in Russia's Ministry of Defense. The Defense Ministry denied the accusations in a Telegram post and state media suggested video of the strike had been staged. So this is what has happened. So he was marching towards Moscow, and he stopped and turned around. And they're giving them safe passage to get to Belarus. That's where they're going, right? Yeah, Belarus. So this is the culmination. So basically, it's over, right? The coup that was supposedly going to happen has ended, and they're giving this guy an escape route. So, but again, in the speech, Putin said, people are going to be held accountable. But then they said that it's on Putin's word that we're going to allow this dude out. So then that makes sense that he would do that, to let this come to an end smoothly, and then what I would think is later on, as time goes on, Putin's gonna hold on for a little while, and then he's gonna go back, hold a whole bunch of people accountable. But allowing him to escape and go to Belarus is probably the best move, so it just quiets this thing down, and it ends it. So basically, it's over. You had a helicopter, at least one helicopter down, and I'm sure some people got hurt as a result of this thing that happened. But the guy, they never made it all the way to Moscow, and now they've turned around and they're heading to Belarus to be safe from Putin. You know what I mean? It's safe from the Russian forces. But you got to wonder what all happened during this time when all of the chaos was happening. How much maneuvers did Putin do? And so, like, also, I saw a message that said that Putin had left Moscow. They were following like a plane or a helicopter or whatever that left Moscow, and they said Putin left Moscow. Maybe he did. That was interesting, but that was during when all of this was happening. But I'm sure he was making plans and maneuvers at the same time while he was doing that. This is all super interesting to me, and this is kind of like breaking news, so it's kind of cool. Not in a way like it that it's horrible things that's happening, but what I'm saying is it's cool for me to be able to share this with y'all. Let me read a couple comments. This one, it says, Wagner mercenaries blew their chance. They will be decimated. Another comment says, I'm just looking at the country that intends to put journalist Julian Assange in jail for exposing war crimes by calling Putin a dictator. Are you not ashamed? Why is the Washington Post not showing solidarity with Julian Assange? Shouldn't journalists go to jail for exposing U.S. government crimes? Isn't Biden the same as Putin? Does only the U.S. have authorization to censor and imprison journalists? Those are good questions, and that's a great comment, but it's kind of beside the point of this story. So let me read another one. It says, in several intel documents being transcribed and analyzed later, watch for the phrase on the cusp. What is he talking about there? Let me read this one. It says, he said, another said, what was said, all part of the great beyond. History today. I can see several learned paper being written and several. That sounds like a code right there. Let me read another one. It says, the U.S. is still stealing oil in Syria today after funding the civil war of ISIS terrorists, but Russia is not the next victim of U.S. thieves and murderers. Bad day for America's decaying empire. Another comment says, the best news of the day, Putin fighting with the Wagner Group and die both. Okay, did you even read the post, buddy? Another comment says, darn it, most of the world hoping Putin and him would both die in a coup attempt. Well, that's not what happened, so hate to bust y'all's bubble. This one, opinion by Max Boot, June 24th, 2023 at 3:27 p.m. ET, Russian President Vladimir Putin is learning what so many tyrants have learned before him. When you unleash the dogs of war, they can come back to bite you. When a Russian strongman sent his troops marched to take Kyiv, he never imagined that 16 months later, mutinous Wagner mercenary group troops would march on Moscow. But then Napoleon never imagined that invading Russia will lead to his exile and the restoration of monarchy in France. Hitler never imagined that invading Poland will lead to his suicide and the partition of Germany. Saddam Hussein never imagined that invading Kuwait will lead eventually to the overthrow of his regime and his death. War is inherently an unpredictable and risky business whose consequences can never be foreseen with clarity and seldom managed with success. A dictator's illusion of control can all too often collapse in the cauldron of combat, especially if the war turns into a prolonged bloody conflict of attrition, as has occurred in Ukraine. It's funny, like this is another one of those comments that's from somebody who thinks they're so smart. I'm sure he was like rubbing himself on the back and he was like, "Oh, look at this, I'm so clever." But bruh, you so off on a lot of this. Like, whoever you are, let's go up. I kind of want to say your name because what the hell? Why can't I do this? Let's see. Billy Burnix. I'm sure that's not a real name. He has a link to a Washington Post article. But anyways, and this guy obviously didn't finish reading this post right here, the Washington Post article, because he's saying that President Vladimir Putin is learning what so many tyrants have learned before him. When you unleash dogs on war, they come back to bite you. So, okay, like that's what the story kind of looked like and kind of was developing into. But this particular post is explaining that the guy turned around and he never made it to Moscow. So Putin didn't get bit by the dogs that he unleashed, bro. And then you went on this long montage using freaking what did he throw in there? Freaking Napoleon, Saddam Hussein. Bro, a lot of what you're saying isn't even how it happened and wrong, you know? Yeah, anyways, your history is, you're saying the narrative is what you're saying. You're repeating the approved history story, you know what I'm saying? But even if you go to school, if you was to take a college course about these topics, you would find out that that official narrative is not what happened in a couple of these cases that he mentioned here. You know, the one that really jumps out to me was Saddam Hussein. He said Saddam Hussein never imagined that invading Kuwait would lead eventually to the overthrow of his regime and his death. So, like, okay, like that is the narrative. That is the narrative. But, you know, they said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He didn't. You know, they said that he was like a tyrant. He was like torturing his people or whatever. He wasn't. You know, he did invade Kuwait, but that was what the invasion of Kuwait was the excuse that NATO forces used to attack, you know, Saddam Hussein. So you aren't clever, buddy. Go back and do a little more reading. Stop swallowing the narrative. Let me read another comment. It says, "No peace for evil Putin." Another one, it says, "I give Yevgeny Prigozhin 2 years at most before he dies from some poison. Putin never forgets or forgives. He goes after people who speak out against him." And that's what I was thinking. He said, so this person says 2 years. So, like, you know, in the speech, he said it twice. The speech I read, he said, you know, people who do treat, you know, they're going to be held accountable. Whoever was about it or behind this is going to be held accountable. He said it twice. And then at the beginning of this whole thing, I showed the clip where the guy, the journalist, asked him, he said, "You can forgive." He was asking Putin, "What can you forgive?" He was like, "Most things, but some things I can't forgive." It's like, what is something that you can't forgive? And treason. He said, "I can't forgive treason." So he's letting old buddy get out and go to Belarus, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be like this is the end of it. Trust and believe. It is not the end of it. Putin got better and more important things to deal with right now. So, but once he handles those things, best to believe he's swinging back around. You're not finna get away with this without freaking, come on. Don't think, sleep with one eye open, buddy. Let me read this one. It says, none of this makes any sense, and Russian media and military spokespeople are propagandists on a normal day. So the idea that we can believe any of this is ludicrous. I'm not a crackpot. Nothing Putin or his people say or do is ever the whole truth. So there's something going on behind the scenes, and this is a smokescreen. Unless Prigozhin has stolen a nuke or is holding Putin's entire family hostage or something else so crazy it deserves its own Hollywood movie. Yeah, this probably not. It would definitely go down in history. Like it's definitely going to be a major event, history event, and it's definitely going to be studied, and a lot more information is going to come out about it. And I think this person is right about it. Like there's definitely more to this story. Like there's definitely more. That's happening than what we're hearing. You know what I'm saying? I'm covered this pretty thoroughly all the way around. But even with the thoroughly coverage that I've done today, I'm sure that it's a lot more to this and a lot more going on behind the scenes with this particular event. Like maybe it is some kind of smokescreen, some kind of psyop, and it's some other agenda. There's some other thing that's happening, and they're using this as cover to do whatever that other thing is, which we won't know because that's the whole point. Maybe after 50 years pass, then it'll come out what was actually going on, but no time soon. Somebody says Putin's word, question mark, laughing emoji. Another comment says Hollywood is taking note. Yeah, this will definitely be a movie. Another comment says Putinists are awfully quiet this evening. Another comment says cool, thanks for making this available. Another comment says disappointing, guess he realized he couldn't take on Putin after all. He was never going to win. I was looking at the thing talking about the numbers, and it was like 25,000 troops, but they also had another 150,000 like reservists or whatever. That's all in the Wagner group. But the problem is they're spread out. Like at the beginning, we were showing the different atrocities that they were talking about. A lot of them were in Africa. So there's troops that are affiliated with the Wagner group, and they're basically stationed all over the world. Not all over the world, but I mean they have them stationed in different places that are far away from Moscow. You know what I mean? So if this guy really intended on having some success with what he was doing, he would have needed to be able to mobilize those troops and bring them back to Russia and use them in this offensive. And then that's what one of the comments was saying also, that a lot of these troops are loyalists to Russia, loyalists to Putin or whatever, even though they work for Wagner Group and basically they're mercenaries and they're just getting paid to do basically dirty work. The United States has very similar thing going on. We have mercenaries. No need to name the group anyways. You guys know. The ones that know, but that doesn't mean that these people are going to actually, like, no matter how much you pay them, at some point, there's certain orders they're not going to follow. You know what I mean? They'll take the money and run, or they'll double cross or triple cross whoever's in charge or whatever, and shit, do a coup on their own freaking bosses or whatever. Because at the end of the day, like I said, a lot of these people are really loyal to Putin and really loyal to Russia. They care about Russia and the Russians. They don't want people to die. That's the reason why I bet that they ended up turning around. I don't know if I have it here. I'm gonna look for it, but the guy Priskinov or whatever, he released a statement. He said he doesn't want Russian blood to be spilt, and that's the reason why he turned around. So like I say, even with him himself and the people that work for him are, a lot of them, even if they're getting paid, they're not trying to fucking go and kill other Russians. They really just don't want to do that. Like, to what end would that be, you know? And if Russia was to fall, like if it was an actual civil war and it was able to bring Russia down to the point where Russia could be, it would immediately be invaded. It would get invaded by Ukraine first, and then right behind that would be NATO and Eastern European countries will be all up in there, taking what, raping and pillaging. You know what I'm saying? And these are their family members: mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, cousins, aunts, children, sons, daughters. Why would they want, you know, people from another country that don't care about Russia to come in there and take over? You know, even the people that hate Putin, and there's people within Russia that really don't like him. You know, these are ethnic Russians who, you know, and they are patriots, they care about Russia, but they don't like Putin. But those same people don't want freaking NATO or freaking Germany or freaking France or you name it to come in there and run the show. No freaking way. And Russians are hardcore gangster ass people anyway, so they're gonna freaking, you know, if you come in there, let's say you somehow did get Putin out of there and you came in there and was trying to like run the show and you didn't really care about Russians, what do you think is going to happen to you, man? You're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time. These people not going to play with you. They're not going to play with you, bro. It's a reason why, you know, ain't nobody trying to run up in Russia. Let's read this one. It says, breaking news, Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin says he accepted truce brokered by Belarus. ABC posted this. The chief of Russia's Wagner mercenary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, has agreed to a truce for his forces to stop movement inside Russia and to take further steps to de-escalate tensions. The president of Belarus said, let's read a comment. It says, Belarus should stay out of it and let the Wagner group dispose of Putin, free Russia. Like, people like this don't know what the hell they're talking about. Belarus should stay out of it and then let Wagner group dispose of Putin. Like, what success were they really going to have? They were going to get smashed like grapes. Another comment, it says, it's insane in our own country. We have the GQP supporting Putin and the pro-democracy party supporting Ukraine. USIS. Another comment says, I wouldn't trust it. How many times have Putin said I trust and then invaded? What is it? I'm going to start reading these comments. My brain just went. This is CBS, so America. That's the people who's making these comments and people that watch ABC News. So let's move on because my brain just hurt by trying to freaking understand what the hell they were saying. So that's pretty much it. So the thing is over. The RT posted this one. It says, Lukashenko, Wagner agrees to end insurrection. It says, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has announced that he has brokered a deal to de-escalate tensions and end the mutiny by PMC Wagner in exchange for security guarantees. The president of Belarus, in agreement with the president of Russia, held talks with the head of Wagner PMC, Yevgeny Prigozhin. As a result, they came to an agreement on the inadmissibility of unleashing a bloody massacre on the territory of Russia. Lukashenko said via a statement from his office, the deal was confirmed by Prigozhin in a voice message, who said that he would turn his columns back and return to their bases, as going any further would be the point where blood can be spilled. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. That's what he said about, I don't know where it is, but that's basically what he said, though. He didn't want, he said Russian blood to be spilled. That was the comment that the Prigozhin guy said. Another comment, it says, sounds like Russia and Wagner just scammed the CIA out of $6.2 billion. Little do they know that the U.S. will just print more money out of thin air to give to Ukraine. That's interesting, too. That's a nice little spin. It says, sounds like Russia and Wagner just scammed the CIA out of $6.2 billion. Wow. So I guess they don't care though. Like trillions of dollars just go missing. So I guess they don't care. 6.2 billion is a drop in the bucket. Shit, no telling what they're gonna do with that money. Go buy some weapons to go shoot at NATO or the US or whatever. Let me read another comment. It says Putin saying Putin showed weakness and cowardness. He actually resolved the problem with no battles and only the loss of a few helicopters. Bravo, Putin. Boom. There goes a really smart comment because this whole thing wrapped up too in less than 48 hours. Probably like 24 hours, a little over 24 hours. The whole thing is wrapped up and over. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Like, hey, I'm not no freaking Putin fan, but you got to look at the facts and realities. You know what I mean? So what's successful? What is accomplishment? What is, what actually happened? Anyways, I kind of wanted to see the story of the money that got dropped off before I wrap this. Because we've been on this for a long time, but this is a big deal. That's why I'm okay with spending the time I spent on it. Wagner chief will not be prosecuted, Kremlin says. This is ABC again. Wagner Group will not be prosecuted and will leave Russia for Belarus, officials say. Where's the story about the money that got dropped off? That's the last one I want to do before I move on from this. Let me see if I can find it. I put this together really quickly while I was working, so forgive me for not being completely organized with this. Where are the guys? It's 1:30.
Обращаюсь к гражданам России.
Let me see if I can find the story about the money. I don't even remember where I saw it. Y'all bear with me a second while I scroll, because we've pretty much covered this pretty thoroughly now. If y'all didn't get it, and rewind it back and go back and look at it. It says, Putin says we are witnessing treason, but there is no ongoing civil war. There was no mention of danger to the Russian citizenry. There's been no confirmed kinetic hostilities between PMC Wagner and Russian Modi. Prigozhin wants a meeting. It must have not been here because it would have been in this little clips here. Where did I see that? I must have not shared it. That sucks. So this is something that got slipped through the cracks. Because I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see it. Anyways, like huge amounts of money that was dropped off. Let me see. Can I do a quick search? What was it? It was like, can I remember the amount? Let's see. No. If I could remember the amount, it'd probably be easier for me to find it, but I can't remember. I don't see it. I don't want to waste any more time on this. But that little detail was really interesting to me because it was a huge amount of money that was like in some trucks or something. When they were marching, they came up on it. So, it was left there for them. I don't see it. I don't see it, y'all. I'm searching YouTube, so YouTube isn't the best place probably to look for this. Yeah, I don't see it. Let me do one more search right quick. It's too much news related to this story. So that's what's making this hard. Yeah, it's way too much. Way too much. It'll probably take me a few minutes to do it, and I don't want to waste no more time because we're live. I wish Doc was here because he could do a search for me while I'm doing something else. And I need to rest my voice. It's not easy to do this, y'all. What I'm doing here. Trust and believe. A lot of your favorite content produced couldn't do this. I think a lot of the guys that are on your major news networks wouldn't be able to do this, what I'm doing right now. It's not easy stuff. I'm doing the work of like 3 or 4 people. And I'm just one guy, and I'm live. So yeah. Pat myself on the back. My daughter had my phone, and now my freaking YouTube history is all freaking messed up. And that sucks because I used that in a certain way. It's messing me up right now. I kind of wanted to see the Cornel West thing, but I really just want to play something so that I can rest my voice here. Y'all give me a second. We covered the Titanic story pretty good yesterday, so I don't want to talk about that no more. The whole news was freaking covering it anyways. Like every damn station was covering it. It's really terrible when it only takes little things to throw my stuff all the way off. And my daughter having my phone for a short amount of time to throw my whole thing into a loop. Anyway, let's go back to Twitter and see if I have a video here that I can play to give myself a chance to rest my voice. I'm pretty sure I have something. We played the student loan forgiveness. Okay, what is this? Multiple countries from Africa and elsewhere defended Eritrea at the UN Human Rights Council. Ever since Eritrea and Ethiopia concluded a historic peace, changing politics in the Horn of Africa, the West was working to undermine both governments with sanctions. That's interesting. That's why I retweeted it. They're so shady.
The United States continues to condemn the Eritrean government's treatment of its citizens.
The EU, nevertheless, remains highly concerned about the human rights situation in Eritrea.
Some Western countries continue to utilize human rights against Eritrea. and fulfill their geopolitical goals and interests.
Eritrea provides specific examples of its active cooperation with the Council and its mechanisms. Unfortunately, we are also subject to continuous reports that are unjustified.
This is politicization. It does not serve human rights.
What is it doing? It's freezing
It
up.
uses human rights mechanisms for political reasons.
The politicization, selectivity, and double standards in dealing with human rights only create obstacles that cannot be surmounted.
South Sudan thanks and appreciates the government of Eritrea for the improvement of the human rights situation in the country and commends the government of Eritrea for a great momentous role in combating human rights violations.
We also would like to ask the special rapporteur about the effect of USMs on the life of Eritrean people. Considering the long-lasting effects of sanctions on development of society, we believe that this issue has to be considered in his report.
We continue to believe that the unilateral imposition by the United States of restrictions against a number of Eritrean and Ethiopian public officials as counterproductive.
Coercive unilateral measures imposed by relevant countries in Eritrea undermines human rights in the country and should be immediately lifted.
I'm sorry I missed your comment, Eric. I just saw it now. Whenever I'm reading articles and stuff, I can't see my home screen for the comments, so forgive me. That's another thing that makes it hard for me when I'm in here by myself, because that's his job to remind me of the comments. He be up on that shit. Well, Pat does it too. So, but yeah, I just now saw your comment. It's been like in almost an hour. So forgive me. If you still here, what's up? What's good with you? I covered that. I covered the Putin situation, and that took like an hour. So. And I was doing a lot of reading, so it makes it tough. I can't see both of those screens at the same time. That's why they say you're supposed to use 2 monitors when you're doing this, so you can see the multiple screens. But I just use the one monitor with the many tabs open, and that's how I do it. Hey Smith, what up? What's good with you? Did any of y'all catch the Putin story that I just covered? If y'all did, make some comments on that. I'd like to hear what y'all think about it. I talked about it for an hour already, so I'm like, my voice is tired. I played that yesterday. What is this?
Too strong. So are people asking for too big wage increases, settlements right now?
Well, let me be very clear on this because it's an important issue. We've got to get, and we will get, inflation back to its target. To do that, I have to be clear, and we expect inflation to come down this year. To do that, we cannot continue to have the current level of wage increases, and we can't have companies seeking to rebuild profit margins, which means prices continue to go up at their current rates. But what I would say to people is we expect inflation to come down, and it's important then that wage setting is that, because the current levels, I'll be absolutely honest, are unsustainable.
Wages, I mean, you talk in the minutes about how wage growth at the moment is potentially too strong. So are people asking for too big?
A. Smith, he says Putin is in Istanbul. Yeah, well, I don't know where he is. He says the Wagner chief is full of hot air. Yeah, he's and he's probably going to face some repercussions. And it could have been just a whole win on whoever was trying to pay the mercenaries to go and do this coup. And meanwhile, they're just going to go home with the money. But then, too, these are big wigs you're messing with. So not only will you may have Putin coming for your ass, and you may have the person who paid you. It's kind of like if somebody pays you for a hit, and then you just take the money and don't do the hit, then the person who pays you for the hit is now going to pay somebody else to do a hit on you, because they're not going to just let that slide. And it's not about the money necessarily. And these people got endless pockets. Like they got long checkbooks. So whether Putin is in Istanbul or somewhere else or in Moscow or underground in a bunker, I don't think it really matters. I mean, the result is the same. You know, the situation is pretty much over. What was this I just played? Chancellor resolved to reduce inflation watertight. What are they talking about here? It says the Bank of England governor, who is on 500,000 plus a year, tells you don't ask for a pay rise as your wages have gone up too much. It is only natural the establishment look after their own first. This is why their decisions are hitting workers hardest. Okay, I think I get why I retweeted this, because this is a argument that they make all the time, you know, like, and we talk about this a lot, but they're like, you know, don't ask for more money. It's gonna hurt the people. They're gonna change the, you know, wham. Let me read a tweet reply. It says, I'm not one to dismiss people based on their degrees, but I wonder why somebody who did a history degree with no economic education is the most qualified person to steer our national bank. Boom. That's kind of interesting. I don't know much about this guy, Chancellor. I don't even know who this is. Chancellor of where? That's the UK. I'm guessing the UK just by the dude's accent, but I don't know. Let me read another comment. It says, bring back Mark Carney. At least he was credible and fairly competent. Another comment said he had enough of having to work with charlatans and went on to become to better opportunities. Another comment says he is hypocritical, greedy. Another comment says only there was an alternative. Labor just the same as Tories, and SCG still saying and fighting as one by one. They're just selected. So yeah, this is the UK. But that's the reason why I cover UK politics really heavily, more than a lot of other places, because they're so comparable to the United States. It's very, very similar. And I say that all the time. And they kind of reflect each other. One influences the other too, a lot of times, you know. Like they be like, they're just over the pond, or sisters over the pond, or something that they say. So, but yeah, that's why I cover UK politics a lot, because the same stuff that they say over there and the same kind of like problems and stuff that they have over there is really similar to what happens over here in the States. So you can understand the politics in the United States better if you try to understand the politics in the UK. If that makes any sense. And do a compare and contrast. It's different but similar. Anyways, I'm trying to give myself like a bit of a break here. I wish somebody was in here to talk. What is this one? It says, in case you just woke up and went to bed early last night, the U.S. House of Representatives formally censored Representative Adam Schiff for amplifying completely false, baseless claims that it was the Russians, not the Americans, who elected real Donald Trump. It was always a preposterous idea to suggest that Trump, a Washington outsider, could only have defeated Hillary Clinton, a Democratic candidate so widely disliked that her own party manipulated her nomination with the help of the Russians. The notion that innocent Americans were manipulated by demonic Russians into voting for a deranged man was a complete fabrication. It says the Democrats in the House continually leaked false information to the media in order to perpetuate this lie. It was disgraceful, and Schiff was censored yesterday for playing a key role in this conspiracy, which cost taxpayers at least $16 million and tarnished America's reputation in the eyes of the international community, while falsely portraying the Russians are more influential than they really are in terms of influencing domestic issues in America. To be honest, Americans do not need Russians to deceive and manipulate them. The intelligence agencies and mainstream media are already doing that. The Durham report has now revealed that the intelligence agencies initiated an investigation into a false collusion claim based on the dossier that was funded by the Democrats to undermine the Trump presidency. May God help us. Yeah, I think I wanted to cover this. I meant to cover this yesterday. This is kind of old now, but it was a bipartisan thing because I want to say it was the Republicans who voted to censor this guy. That kind of thing happens a lot, but the particular topic was interesting. That's the reason why I found it interesting. Anyways, I'm gonna move on. I need a break. Let's play this. It's 2 minutes. This should do me.
The U.S. government and the bipartisan consent. RFK Jr. is a serious person. He has a serious critique, well beyond the question of vaccines, of the Democratic Party establishment, the U.S. government, and the bipartisan consensus, the shared views, which are many, between the two political parties. And it's therefore not surprising that there's this desperate effort to make sure that he is not engaged with, that he's not given a platform to debate. That is what the establishment does above all else. Now,
come on.
Let's remember that while, as we're about to show you, there was this outpouring of anger and indignation over the mere suggestion that someone as elevated and lofty as Professor Peter Hotez, MD, PhD, should have to debate some peasant who's nowhere near his level. Even though this very same Peter Hotez has not exactly been confining himself to the lofty heights of peer-reviewed science or journals, he has instead been spending the last several years deliberately turning himself into a Twitter star and a cable news star, constantly going on the scummiest MSNBC shows like Joy Reid and Chris Hayes and the various CNN shows, where he's routinely heralded as a hero and as a great man, hours on Morning Joe. This is not somebody too high-minded to lower themselves to a podcast like Joe Rogan's, which has at least 10 times the audience as those other programs that I just named on which he's been spending his time. In fact, he's been on TMZ, where he's talked about the origins of COVID, claiming that it is preposterous to believe that it might have come from a lab leak. And he has gone around saying the most really alarming and disturbing things. I don't blame them for wanting to keep him shielded from any kind of debate or critical scrutiny at the hands of somebody who really knows what they're talking about, like RFK Jr., because it would instantly reveal this person not only as dishonest, but as demented. He's a true authoritarian. He wanted dissent from their pieties and orthodoxies on lockdowns and COVID and vaccines to be criminalized. He demanded the U.S. government treat it like terrorism, to say nothing of.
Come on.
All the many things that he insisted were true that turned out to be completely false.
Yeah, well, I apologize, y'all, but this story is random. Let me explain. Let's see. It says, what does it say? It says, proof Peter Hotez, MD, PhD of MSNBC, TMZ, fame would like for you to know that he is far too credentialed and elevated to bother debating RFK Jr., or he's terrified that his atrocious politically motivated COVID record would be exposed. A brief thread on his worst transgressions. So, one of the things that RFK is really vocal about is COVID, and he is challenging people to debate him on the topic, but the authorities on the topic it seems that they're afraid to engage him with that. So that's what he's talking about here in this clip that I just played. So it says, in September of 2020, he was a leading voice against Trump's emergency use authorization to fast-track vaccine production, citing the dangers of an expedited approach. In 2021, with Biden in office, he deemed them safe enough to call for vaccinating children.
Here you see in Yahoo News in September of 2020, doctors alarmed as the FDA floats emergency use of COVID-19 vaccine bypassing trials. You may remember that people were desperate to get this vaccine into people's hands, and the only way to do that, to skip over all the clinical...
Come on. I'm tired now. I ain't gonna lie. That Russia story took a lot out of me.
Trials normally required by the FDA is to invoke the emergency use provision of the FDA, which allows much shorter and less thorough vaccine trials to test the safety and efficacy of the vaccine. And because it was the Trump administration, many doctors were saying, this is irresponsible. You cannot allow a vaccine to come to the public through the emergency use FDA provision, because that would be reckless use of, because they were petrified that Trump would benefit politically if he succeeded in getting a vaccine into the hands of people to save lives from COVID. This is what scumbags they are. Think about that. They were pretending to be so concerned about the COVID pandemic and people dying from it. But just like they prioritized their political ideology when it came to advice about whether you can leave the house or not, depending on what kind of protest it was, they completely changed their views on whether we should use the emergency use procedure to get vaccines into the hands of the public when it was Trump doing it versus Biden. So here begins the article, quote, epidemiologists and vaccine experts are alarmed by FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn's recent assertion that he will consider approving a coronavirus vaccine before the completion of late-stage clinical trials. The FDA commissioner can issue a so-called emergency use authorization, EUA, on his own if he determines that the benefits of rushing the vaccine into production outweigh the risks. But several vaccine experts told Yahoo News that they are deeply concerned by the idea. No vaccine has ever been approved on an EUA basis, said Dr. Peter Hotez, a top vaccine expert, except ones to overcome unusual technicalities on a military anthrax vaccine. Quote, we don't do EUAs for vaccines, Hotez said. It's a lesser review, it's a lower quality review. And when you're talking about vaccinating a large chunk of the American population, that's not acceptable. He was adamant that there be no COVID vaccine without undergoing the normal battery of long-term clinical testing, because it's unacceptable, he said, to rush a vaccine into the hands of the population without putting it through the normal rigors of clinical testing. On October 23rd, President Trump called a press conference to announce an EUA for coronavirus plasma, for convalescent plasma to treat COVID-19, which was controversial in its own right, but the people who might receive it are already sick. Vaccines, by definition, are given to healthy people. In that light, it is vital that clinical trials be allowed to run their course, especially given the novel approaches some labs are employing in their coronavirus efforts, said Hotez, a professor of pediatrics and the dean of the School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine. So there you see, when Donald Trump was president, Hotez was petrified that people would get a vaccine that worked and that would benefit Trump politically in the 2020 election. He wanted the vaccine kept out of the hands of the public. Suddenly, here in October 2021, when Joe Biden is president, from the AGMC, you have Dr. Peter Hotez on the urgent need for a COVID-19 vaccine for children. And this is what he says, quote, What must parents and providers consider with the FDA's EUA, emergency use authorization of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for children? Hotez, I would have liked to have seen more of a full-throated endorsement of the vaccine. The vote was unanimous except for one abstention, but the need for a vaccine for children ages 5 to 11 is clear. We've had more than 8,300 hospitalizations with this big 5 to 10-fold increase in the number of hospitalizations over the summer because of the Delta variant, because it's so highly transmissible. I think the one concern that was raised is the fact that the clinical trial leading to the emergency use authorization in 5 to 11-year-olds was done in 2,200 kids, roughly 1,500 got the vaccine and 700 plus got the placebo. And that would not be sufficient to see 1 in 10,000 events. I think that was perhaps the only reservation, but overwhelmingly, the risk of severe COVID-19 leading to hospitalization far outweighs that potential possibility of myocarditis in the younger kids. So just think about that. When it came to adults in the Trump administration, Hotez wanted to block the vaccine on the grounds that emergency use authorization was reckless. Under Joe Biden, he wanted to rush this vaccine, even for children under the ages of 5 to 11 who were barely dying of this disease. It was extremely rare. And he wanted to skip over the EAU and get these vaccines into the hands of children as quickly as possible, completely changing what he said for obvious political reasons.
So basically he's saying, you know, depending on who's in office, this guy is, you know, advocating for the vaccines or not, or whatever, you know. And a lot of people use this whole COVID thing politically, you know, and a political chip for whichever side, you know. And that's really freaking horrible because you got people's lives at risk. So that shows that a lot of people don't really care about people's lives over their politics, you know. Political gain is more important than people dying or getting hurt, you know. And the whole thing with the vaccines, the way that they did the emergency authorization was shady, you know, from jump. You know, if they really cared about people, then they would have taken the time to do the proper trials so that you could get good data to be able to make good decisions based on it. So, but then what if Pat was here, he would say, you know, the people was the trial, you know, they were testing it on the people instead of going through the proper procedures to make sure that the stuff was good. Just go ahead and release it and then get the data back and decide on what's safe and what's not. But meanwhile, these people are getting tested on and they don't even know, you know, they're taking an experimental, they know it's an experimental drug, but the people, you know, the powers that be are telling them that it's safe or whatever, and in a lot of cases forcing you to take it, you know. Really shady, super shady. And you know, one thing, like I think
Here you see in Yahoo News in September,
he's kind of touching on a little bit related to the protests, because when this, I know so much happened that it's hard to remember, but when this happened, it was a protest going on. China had protests going on against China, and you know, the people were in the streets and weren't happy, you know. And then all of a sudden lockdowns came and it, you know, became like illegal to go outside, and you would get in trouble, get thrown in jail because it's like, oh, you're trying to spread COVID or whatever. But the people were protesting on stuff that had nothing to do with, you know, COVID. And the same thing were happening here in the States, because you had like the Black Lives Matter protests that was going on related to police killings and so forth and so on. And a good way to squash protests is to tell people that they can't go outside. You know what I mean? That they're going to make other people sick, and that it's illegal to protest now. And then, and people can swallow that because it's like, you know, everyone is telling you, hey, it's a pandemic and you can spread this stuff and you can kill people, or you can get sick and die yourself. And that's a great way to just squash the protests. I tell you what, though, when you keep squashing those protests like that, it's like throwing a carpet on top of a fire, it keeps smoldering underneath. And then at some point, it's gonna reignite even bigger than it was before. The Black Lives Matter thing, like I've said before in the show, it was at the beginning. At the beginning, it was really organic, and no leaders, and it was just people were just angry, and like I say, you throw a carpet over that, and at some point, it's going to reignite. So I could see a reoccurrence of this kind of like mass protests across the whole nation. All it takes is we're a powder keg. It's just going to take a spark. Who knows what the event will be? It's pretty much impossible to predict it, but I can tell you that it will happen, with confidence, because people are angry. Those sentiments haven't gone away, and the system hasn't been fixed. Nothing has changed. Excuse me, y'all. I ain't gonna lie, I'm freaking tired. Forgive me. And I'm losing my freaking train of thought, and I really need somebody here so that I can gather myself. But I freaking can't gather myself because there's nobody freaking here. We mentioned Julian Assange briefly in one of the message comments that I read earlier related to the Russia thing, but the Julian Assange story is pretty damn important. Let me read this. It says, powerful words from President Lula, the lack of solidarity from journalists in US, UK for their colleague Julian Assange is something straight out of 1984. It says the 2 minutes hate worked. In Italy, President Lula asked where the free press is to defend Julian Assange, who faces extradition for exposing US crimes. Let's play some of Lula. I don't think I played this.
Merece respeito e elogio de qualquer jornalista.
Damn it. I thought it would have a translation in here. I don't feel like reading. it, so maybe I won't do that one. We did the what's the name? And we talked about the water last night. We talked about the Navajo Nation and the 5-4 ruling that came down from the Supreme Court. And just so happened to be a train. Do I have this in Instagram? I think I have this in Instagram. But there was a bridge that collapsed and a train fell into the water. What is it? The Colorado River? Whatever. It's the river that supplies the Navajo Nation with clean water. It just so happened that this has happened recently. And right after this 5-4 ruling that says that, the government doesn't have any authority to make sure that, or they don't have any obligation to make sure that the Navajo Nation has clean water. It says that wasn't in the treaty that they signed or whatever. That's what the Supreme Court decision said. So, but then it's ironic that like right after this decision comes down, damn bridge collapses and a train falls into the water, like compartments of a train, parts of the train fall into the water. And it just so happened to be carrying freaking petrochemicals or whatever. So the freaking river has just recently been contaminated right after the 5-4 ruling that, the United States doesn't have any obligation to, I don't have it in here, to make sure that the Navajo Nation has clean water. Damn it, I'm gonna have to look this one up. Let's look this up. So what is it? Train Colorado River train bridge, let's say. See, my brain is working slow. Bridge collapse. I think it's Colorado River. It's Navajo. Let's see. That should hopefully get it. It's showing it's showing the freaking Supreme Court ruling. That's not what I want. I want that train that fell. Where is it? Come on. Train pollutes. Let's try it like this. Train pollutes River Navajo Nation. Let's see if this does it. Nope, it's still not popping up. Ugh. I apologize, y'all. I need somebody here. I don't see it. Chemical spill from train derailment. Ohio River is what it is. Is this it? No, that's not it because that's 4 months ago. This just happened like this week. I think just the other day. I think it happened like yesterday, day before. Chemical disaster 4 months ago. So this is not it. Train pollutes river. Train pollutes whole nation water. Will that work? Come on, y'all. Gimme. It's going back to the Supreme Court ruling. That stuff came down 2 days ago. And then I think that this thing I'm talking about happened like yesterday. Where is it? I can't find it, y'all. Everything I'm looking for, I can't find. Can't freaking get it. I don't know. I might wrap it. So I don't have nobody here and I'm freaking tired. My eyes are burning. Let's do this story here. I wanted to cover this. It says African and Black history. It says Thomas Sankara was a revolutionary African leader. He drove out French imperialism from Burkina Faso and withdrew from IMF and made the country non-reliant on foreign aid. He was assassinated in a coup led by his close ally, Blaise Compaoré, supported by French imperialists. As far as African leadership goes, Thomas Sankara was cut from a different piece of cloth. Here are some of his accomplishments. Only 4 years in power, 1983 to 87. He vaccinated 2.5 million children against meningitis, yellow fever, and measles in a matter of weeks. He initiated a nationwide literacy campaign, increasing the literacy rate from 13% in 1983 to 73% in 1987. He planted over 10 million trees to prevent desertification. He built roads and railroads to tie the nation together without foreign aid. He appointed females to high government positions, encouraged them to work, recruited them into the military, and granted pregnancy leave during education. He outlawed female genital mutilation, forced marriages, and polygamy in support of women's rights. He sold off the government fleet of Mercedes cars and made the Renault 5 the cheapest car sold in Burkina Faso at that time, the official service car of the ministries. He reduced the salaries of all public servants, including his own, and forbade the use of government chauffeurs and first-class airline tickets. He redistributed land from the feudal landlords and gave it directly to the peasants. Wheat production rose in 3 years from 1,700 kilograms per hectare to 3,800 kilograms per hectare, making the country food self-sufficient. He opposed foreign aid, saying that he who feeds you controls you. He spoke in forums like the Organization of African Unity against continued neocolonialism, colonialists, penetration of Africa through Western trade and finance. He called for a united front of African nations to repudiate their foreign debt. He argued that the poor and exploited did not have an obligation to repay money to the rich and exploiting. In Agudagu, Sankara converted the army's provisions store into a state-owned supermarket open to everyone, the first supermarket in the country. He forced civil servants to pay 1 month's salary to public projects. He refused to use the air conditioning in his office on the grounds that such luxury was not available to anyone but a handful of Burkinabes. As president, he lowered his salary to $450 a month and limited his possessions to a car, 4 bikes, 3 guitars, a fridge, and a broken freezer. A motorcyclist himself, he formed an all-woman motorcycle personal guard. He required public servants to wear a traditional tunic woven from Burkinabe cotton sewn by Burkinabe craftsmen. The reason being to rely upon local industry and identify rather than foreign industry and identity. When asked why he didn't want his portrait hung in public spaces, as was the norm for other African leaders, Sankara replied, "There are 7 million Thomas Sankaras." An accomplished guitarist, he wrote the new national anthem himself. So yeah, this is a reoccurring story. I can't the name I think of right away in reading this story is Patrice Lumumba, because his story is like exactly the same as this one. So, and then like this kind of thing happens over and over and over and over and over again, especially within these countries in Africa. Whenever the leader, they always say that African countries are full of corruption and like the leaders don't care about the people and all they care about is making money and exploiting the people. And that's the reason why African countries are backwards and they can't get out of poverty and they can't become developed nations, and all of this is because the people just suck and they're just horrible and their leaders just horrible and they mess over their people. That's the that is the what's the word I'm looking for? That's the narrative, okay? But it's totally not true. So, but what they tend to do is they make narratives true after the fact. Like it's not natural and organic how the information that comes out that supports these narratives aren't natural. They're not organic. They are manipulated and led into that situation. So, and especially whenever you have examples that go against the narrative, they are a problem. They are a big problem for the powers that be because it doesn't fit the story that they like everyone to believe to be true. So then they have to be dealt with immediately, quickly, and expeditiously, and to return things back to quote unquote the natural order, which is not natural at all. It's just the narrative, but they want to return things back to the narrative whenever you have someone that goes against it. So this guy here, along with Patrice Lumumba, along with many other names. I'm tired. I can't think of the names, but this guy was assassinated in a coup, and then the country went back to trash, afterwards. And that's what they want, it allows the private corporations to come in and exploit the people and take their resources, and you know, it upholds the narrative that like basically Africans, black folks just can't get their shit together and that they suck, you know, that they can't take care of themselves, you know, they got to rely on the IMF or whatever, or some kind of aid. They always have to rely on aid to be able to survive, you know, this kind of stuff. It's really sad to me, you know, that people believe this stuff to be true, but it's not hard to understand why people believe it to be true, because they continue to hear it over and over and over and over again. And then, you know, you hear something so many times that you just can't help but to believe it to be true. You know, it's like the stereotypes that you hear, and then you see someone do it, and then you're like, well, those stereotypes must be true for all of those people or whatever, you know, but it's not. And it's really sad. And then, you know, so that the worst atrocity that you could do as a political leader, especially in an African country, but this is true in other places around the world, is actually look out for your people, you know, and go against the narrative and shut the door to the international corporations, to shut the door to the IMF Bank and the World Bank, you know, to not rely on any outside influences, and then flourish, to have the gall to be successful and actually care about your people. And, you know, that is the worst thing that you can do, because you can see Venezuela is another example of that. Cuba is another example of that. You know, you can keep going down the list, and the that's what they did wrong. That's how they effed up, was looking out for their people and being successful with it and controlling their own resources and not allowing especially like American corporations to come in and exploit their resources, you know, to not be corrupt. You know, it's the worst thing to do. They're going to come in and they're going to kill you. Really sad. Let's read some tweet replies. It says, for anyone who wants to learn more about the dream of transforming Burkina Faso, Sankara's collected speeches is a great work. Another comment says, I read this book at age 13, a wonderful man. Another comment says, I'm from Eastern Europe, but Thomas Sankara has always been one of my heroes. What an absolute legend. Another comment says, same old story repeated to this day. That's what I'm saying. Hear this story way too much. It makes me sad. Like I got a tear can come to my eye. Let me read another one. It says, always an Uncle Tom that does their bidding, always. Whatever. Oh, they talking about the person who killed him, because that's what happens too. Like every time, the Patrice Lumumba was that story, you know. It's always, they always get one of their own, one of your own people to betray you, you know. It's like the story of Jesus and Judas, you know. It's one of your own folks, and then they pay him, like, so it's the money, you know. The story of Judas, you know, they gave him the money, and that's what sold out Jesus or whatever. So like you could say Patrice Lumumba was like Jesus, and you could say the same for this guy here, Thomas Sankara. You know, he got sold out by one of his peoples, and that's what they do. They pay them, they give them money, and then they sell out the guy. And sometimes they actually be the ones who kill them. So sad. Another comment says, Uncle Tom was the hero. Actually, he refused to beat on the slaves when ordered. The name you're looking for is House Negro. Another comment, it says, Moray history, a brief but devastating struggle of the Biafran people during the split from Nigeria in 1967 is often forgotten by many. However, the world became aware of the magnitude of the crisis through powerful images depicting the manipulation and disease that claimed their lives. of potentially millions. I don't want to go into that. Images will get me in trouble too. The House of UK Lords and their queens were responsible for the genocide in Biafra. History ignored it. No black person should forget. Another comment says, many true facts, but today's Africa indebted by China or helped by Wagner Group, not good as well. Africa belongs to the Africans, but no African country should belong to one individual and family and friends. It's very often the case, and money stolen goes back to hidden. Oh, man. I'm probably going to wrap it, y'all. Wish I could have got somebody in here. Did I miss anything in here that I wanted to cover? This one. Oh, what happened? What did I do? Was I even sharing with y'all? Can y'all hear me? I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties here. Oh, that was Instagram. Oh, that's right. I'm not sharing. That's why. Okay. Hold on. Let's go back.
Absolutely. We are creating a culture of life in America, and that's a really good thing.
Every Republican candidate for president should support a ban on abortion before 15 weeks as a minimum nationwide standard.
15 weeks, we're going to draw a line. We're going to save babies in California. We're going to stand up for the unborn in Washington, D.C. And if you cannot do that, you should not be the nominee for the Republican Party.
And thank God Almighty for the Dobbs decision. Absolutely. We are creating a culture of life in America, and that's a really good thing.
Every Republican candidate for president should support a ban on abortion before 15 weeks as a minimum nationwide standard.
So basically right here, it doesn't really matter where you stand on the abortion issue. You know, it's a very sensitive topic, you know, and it's very divisive. So, but regardless of where you stand on it, you have to be able to see the hypocrisy in this, where it's like, so the post, it says, remember when Republicans said abortion was a states' right issue? And it says they are now pushing for a national ban on abortion. So that these quotes, these clips that they play here are these guys, you know, pushing for a national ban of abortion. Well, that would make it federal. That would make it like, you know, the federal government tells the states that abortion is illegal. You know, like I say, it doesn't matter where you stand on this, okay? Which side you're on doesn't matter with this topic related to, you know, them saying initially the argument was that it's states' rights, you know, and that was what the Supreme Court decision kicked out. And that's what it said. It said the whole thing should be decided by the states. So that was the argument. And that's where they used the Constitution or whatever. And that was the legal standing that they stood on. And then that's where the conservatives or Republicans or whatever you want to say, whichever group, the ones that are the pro-life folks, you know, they jumped on that bandwagon of, you know, states' rights, that it should go to states' rights. And that's what they stood on. So, okay, you can say, okay, that's fair or whatever. You can say that. And then so different states were making decisions on how they want to deal with abortion, you know, and that's how it's been since the Dobbs decision. But with the political atmosphere and the direction that it's going in, and then you got the presidential campaigns roaring, you know, they are now saying, we are pushing for a national ban. So, but then you just flipped, you just switched. At first you said states' rights. Now you're saying making it a national ban. That's the opposite of states' rights. So which is it? Is it that you cared about the states' rights, or is it just that you want to make sure that people don't have access for abortion nowhere in the United States? Which is it? So like I said, it doesn't really matter where you are on this topic. You have to be aware of the hypocrisy and how they are manipulating people. It's not, the integrity is not there. They don't have no integrity. Let me read some comments. It says they're going to stand up for the unborn, but they don't care about the children getting shot to death in school. I think that's a fair comment. Another comment, it says faith and freedom. F your faith. Keep your religious opinions to yourself. Another comment says, Jesus, they sure hate women. Another comment, it says, once these children are born, the government doesn't want to help them, should make it mandatory for vasectomies. And that's a fair argument. Why is the focus on the woman related to making these babies? Why not pressure on men? You could do men contraceptions. You could do ways that keep the men from being able to get the women pregnant. But that's not the focus, because like I'll be saying all the time, this particular argument is about, subservient women, like controlling women, like putting them down. That's how I feel about it. That's what they really care about. They don't really care about those kids or the babies. They don't care about the babies. They want to control women. That's my take on that. Let me read this one. It says, you can't stand there and talk abortion bans without talking about how you're going to care for all the unwanted children. And that's another argument that I make all the time. All these pro-life people, they care about the baby all the way until they come out. And then once they come out, it's like, find something to eat. Let me read this one. It says, how about saving the living children that are hungry, homeless, and school lunches? The schools need updating curriculum with real history. Missing children that have been child sex trafficked. The Republicans, they are also made a rule in some red states to end child care workers law. They voted against any family leave, child care, health care, and education for mental health. Oh man, I think so many people are blinded when it comes to this particular topic because they get all emotional, and then the logical thinking just goes out of the window. So like you're super religious or whatever, so you just don't want to. Logic is not where you're at, and you can't make a logical argument with someone that's not thinking logically. This one, it says no birth control, no abortions, no assistance for new mothers, no food assistance for babies, no health care for expectant mothers, no health care for babies. Hell of a platform you got there, Republicans. PSA, Senate Republicans just blocked a vote to protect every American's right to use birth control. Yes, birth control. So Move On posted this. Did they make a caption? No. Let's read some comments. It says Republicans always find a way to get abortions for their mistresses. Another comment says, we will vote them out. This cannot overrule the women of this country. We are tired of being bullied by extremist white old men. Another comment says, they really hate women, the babies after they're born. Another comment, holy freaking S. Wake up, people. This is insane. Vote these fascist misogynists out. Your freedoms truly depend on it. Another comment says, and their goal for the Republican Party is no free lunch for kids. Pro-life, my ass. Another comment says, and I have to say this, it's like if you're pro-life, then you should care about the life after they come out of the womb. Even adults, not just children, everybody. Little kids, big kids, adults, old people, Black people, white people, Hispanic people, LGBTQ. If you're pro-life, then you're pro-life, bro. Like the whole way through. Like another comment says, but why should any woman have to have children if there's a chance that these children will die at school because taking away military weapons is not going to happen? I know they claim that abortion is murder, but can they work on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness before they make pregnancy mandatory? Or can we just please vote them out? Another comment says, why do Republican men and women continue to support these individuals and give them their vote? Oh, hold on. Despite their apparent prejudice towards anything other than white and straight, it's truly baffling and makes no logical sense. I eagerly anticipate the day they reconsider their choices and embrace a more inclusive perspective. I think it's beating a dead horse when you do the anything related to the abortion argument, because people aren't going to hear it, like no matter what. No one's trying to hear it. I'm gonna wrap it, y'all. I'm freaking tired. This one is interesting. It says, Illinois became the first state to ban public libraries from banning books. Illinois made it illegal to ban books. Governor Pritzker signed a law that stops funding for libraries that ban books based on political or religious reasons. Libraries can make their own rules against book banning. The law aims to protect library freedom and prevent restriction on book access. The bill's signing happened at a children's library in Chicago. State Representative Stava Murray sponsored the legislation, opposing one-size-fits-all standards imposed by local governments. Pressure to ban books has increased, especially in conservative states. Banned books include those with LGBTQ characters and those about racial history. Attempts to ban books reached a 20-year high in 2022. Secretary of State Giannalis said that the laws trust librarians' expertise. The law takes effect in January 1st, 2024. Comments, it says, I can almost guarantee it's not a good thing that they will put books in there that children should see or read. Another comment, it says, banning books from public libraries, definitely not, but banning certain books from children's school libraries, of course. Another comment, it says, this is the same guy that banned cash bail, so think about it before you deem him a good guy. I don't see a problem with getting rid of cash bail, y'all. Another comment, it says, so they can put all their pedo material in there. Another comment, it says, would not have kids raised here. Another comment, LOL, there's lots of conservative hate in these comments. Another comment, it says, I guess now kids can read adult novels in Illinois. Another comment, yes, stop banning all the gay sex books for elementary kids, damn it. Another comment, it says, this is phrased like it's a good thing. Apparently, folks still don't know the kind of perversions turning up in some kids' library books these days. Another comment, it says, so Nazi books will be in there, be careful. Another one, so let's post a book about anti-liberal stuff and see how long it lasts. Another comment, LOL, I don't know why, but the photo looks like a pic from the 60s or something. That's kind of an interesting comment because, in the 60s and 70s, you had all of these, you had what they call the civil rights era. And during that time, they passed a slew of laws to make things like, more fair, if you will, or whatever, trying to make things more just, changing, people were still getting lynched and stuff in the 50s. They had the thing that happened with the dogs and the protests and the water cannons and stuff. And that's what led, to those laws being passed, to protect people from being lynched and mob mobs like attacking people, and the stuff having to do with the segregation and, you know, separate but equal, knowing that that wasn't what it was. You know, you had one group having trash schools, trash facilities, another group having, you know, state of the art facilities, and, you know, not wanting the other group to take advantage of those facilities. And, you know, I would say that that's the moment when the public school system started going to shit too. So again, it comes back to racism, the reason why the public school system is trash, and it's all about the charter schools and the private schools and the religious schools now. Is, you know, that's them still getting what they want. It's still segregated, very much so, but it's more along class lines now and more along income lines, like, you know, how much you make, what determines if you can have a decent education or not. They don't want regular folks to have a decent education, you know, decent facilities. You know, I think a lot of it has to do with certain people just don't want others to have the same that they have. It's like they feel like they don't deserve it. You know, it's like I deserve better than them. If these people are getting the same as me, then that makes me lesser or whatever. That, you know, I deserve better than them. So I want to make sure that I get better. My children get better than them. They shouldn't get the same as my children because they don't deserve it. They are dirty, they're poor, they are black, or they are gay, or whatever, or they're immigrants or something. Like they don't deserve to have the same thing that I have. That's communism. Anyways, y'all, I'm kind of disappointed in today's show. I think I did a good job covering the Russia thing, but I'm disappointed that I didn't have anybody join, and I'm also disappointed that I wasn't able to interact with the comments because I couldn't see them. So I apologize for that, y'all. Anyways, peace and love. Thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for listening. We'll be back next week. I might do a bonus show just because I was disappointed in today's show, but peace and love, y'all.